How's it going, Andrew?
What's going on, Matt?
Not much. We're up here in Madison for annual communication, getting this thing kicked off. Well, we kind of kicked it off last night already.
Oh, yeah. Every time I come back to this building, I'm always thinking about how this is just a beautiful building, being down here in Madison at the Wisconsin Masonic Center. Always a good time. Stoked to be here, so pretty cool.
It is an absolute beautiful building. Always good fellowship going on here. So we, imbibed a little bit last night. We're ready to go today.
Oops.
Yeah, well, fellowship. Those hospitality rooms will get you.
Cool. Well, let's just kick it off, and we'll start talking to brethren today, and I will play our music.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
All right, we are on at Annual Communication. We got right here our good friend and brother, Bill Reed. Hi, Bill. What's going on?
You got him muted.
So we try that again. Yep. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Just another fun-filled and exciting day in Freemasonry. So really looking forward to it.
This is your first annual communication after many years of being a Mason.
Many years of being Mason, getting all the way through the chairs and never had come.
Sure.
So I always have a conflicting obligation. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad I could be here this year.
How long have you been a Mason now, Bill?
12 years.
12 years. That's a good long run.
Loved every minute of it.
Right on. As you should have. So you've been commander of Ivanhoe Commandery. You've been Worshipful Master of Lake. Did you do the other? Yeah, you did do.
Was past High Priest of the Royal Arch and past thrice illustrious Master of Council.
That's right, because you have your KYCH.
Yeah, I got the KYCH. Yes.
What originally brought you to Masonry? I don't know if I've ever even asked you this.
It's something that I've kind of always wanted to do. I had friends that were Masons, but being off in the military, I just didn't have an opportunity. And then when I got back, bumped into some more friends who were Masons, and I said, how do I get to be a Mason? They said, be one, ask one. I said, sign me up. So I came in. It's great.
What kept you coming back after you joined?
The brotherhood, the camaraderie, the fellowship. That's the kind of things that I missed being out of the military. Because the military, you have the camaraderie, you have your brotherhood, and so it kind of filled that void. And the lessons that are taught there, I love doing ritual, which is why I went on through the York Rite.
And sat in all the chairs.
Yeah,
yep.
Right.
And I just like doing that.
Excellent. And before we wrap this up with you and get somebody else in the chair, as a past master, if you were to give one piece of advice to a new incoming Worshipful Master, what would it be?
Incoming Worshipful Master?
Yeah.
Breathe. Take it slow. The year is going to go really fast, so do your best to kind of keep things under control. Because you can get just so much going on, and all of a sudden you're done. So you need to kind of step back every once in a while and evaluate, not so much, evaluate's not a good word, and just consider what's going on.
Reflect on everything.
Reflect, that's the right word. That's the right word. And just reflect, because it does go so fast. And it's really a great ride if you enjoy the ride. So, slow down and enjoy the ride.
Excellent. I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, we haven't had that advice before, and that's good advice.
No, that's a solid one. I've been keeping a journal this year as I'm in the East, just so I can kind of keep track of everything. So if I ever want to go back and review it, I can. So.
And you're doing a phenomenal job, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely phenomenal. Well, guys, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on,
We'll
Bill.
have you on again at some point, Bill.
Yeah, we'll try
We'll get you a full episode.
Before you move out of state, we'll grab you for one.
Works for me.
Awesome.
All right. Next up is Brother Ryan Thiele, a returning guest on the Time for Fellowship podcast. And also, he happens to be parliamentarian for Grand Lodge this weekend, so he gets to make sure everything goes according to the rules.
He's our rule guy.
Yeah, I'll try my hardest. Thanks again for having me, Matt and Andrew. This is my second year now, and I apparently just signed on for a third year about 5 minutes ago. No, it's very enjoyable. It's a lot of fun. There's a few rules that Grand Lodge already has that people can follow, so that's nice. But really my job is just make sure things are orderly, smooth, make it as easy as possible for the Grand Master and his staff and officers, and really for the delegates too, because it can be a little overwhelming when you're in there for 4, 6, 8 hours, no matter how long it takes, right?
Right.
So.
For sure. I'm excited to know that you're up there to keep me in line when I present my resolutions, our resolution as a lodge. So I don't know why I keep saying I keep falling into that trap for some reason. It's just because I'm presenting it, I think.
It's a bit challenging because, the Grand Master is essentially a benevolent dictator, right?
Yep.
Which is totally fine. And then when the question then becomes when do the rules stop and when does the Grand Master's authority begin? That's what makes this weekend for me so exciting compared to other organizations that I've been parliamentarian for or that I am a parliamentarian for, because it's very cut and dry there. You know where things begin and end. But here, right. Grand Master can do what he wants. I just make recommendations. That's what's the fun part. So
that's awesome.
I think it's really important to have a good parliamentarian up there because there's an overwhelming amount of people here. There's an overwhelming amount of procedures.
Right.
And you can't expect every Grand Master to be an expert on every part. I'm sure they have some familiarity and competency, but it's nice to have someone who's just like, I'm going to sit here and only keep an eye on this. And when I see something, it's like you're the dungeon master sitting back there like, up. There's a rule here. And then you're like, oh, okay, let's figure it out. Let's go through it. Yep.
Every Grand Master is going to have, a different level of discretion or a different level of specificity. Mm-hmm. Last year, Most Worshipful Brother Paul was very much, he was very confident. He knew exactly what he wanted, right? And I believe it's going to be that way for quite a while. The Grand Masters are very confident in their work. So that makes my job a little easier, but does make it a little exciting because I don't know, when is it going to be, hey, Ryan, help me enforce a rule, or it's going to be, Most Worshipful, we should maybe take a look at this. And he's like, no, I'm good. Okay, yeah, no problem.
Yep,
so
just let you know.
The discretion is fun. It's exciting. It's something new every resolution because it could change with the resolutions, right? So I'm excited. And I'm excited for what Lake Lodge is proposing, though as parliamentarian, I will remain nonpartisan.
Yeah,
so gotta remain fair.
I'm not voting on our own resolution either because I'm the one presented it. So I feel like standing at the podium and holding up my card. Everybody knows where my vote's going to fall if I'm presenting the resolution.
But what if they go, actually, this resolution is short by one vote? Then you just go,
well, we're all going to look at you then.
Then that would be when by one vote would turn it into a tie, but if it's a tie, I guess I get the tiebreaker as being the one presenting it.
Yeah.
If you noticed, even in Lodge, I don't vote as Worshipful Master. I sit back and I take in the vote from the brethren, and then if there's a tie, I would be the tiebreaker.
And that's a good role of the chair, right, is to leave the discussion to the body. And that's also what makes this weekend exciting with the Grand Master is the Grand Master as a concept is a little bit more involved in the discussions than, say, a chair of a body or a committee, right? So whereas typically I've been used to, for example, such as DMLA, where I'm parliamentarian for the youth as well, teaching them all that stuff. The State Master Counselor there is very hands-off. He is very much just guiding the discussion. He doesn't put in his 2 cents. And here, the Grand Master can go on a 15-minute discussion about his feelings or thoughts on something, and that's just the way that it is, right? So, and that's cool. And we've had some pretty good Grand Masters that have guided the discussions and kept their opinions to themselves as as a neutral chair, right?
And I mean, since
That's
I've been
been
coming
fun.
to annual, most of the Grand Masters, when they interject, they're basically clarifying a lot of the time, trying to clarify questions and answers, being
Which
like, this is
happens
what you're
a
voting
lot.
on. And then another guy comes up, and he's like, this is, okay, let me re-explain it to you. This is what we're doing. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. Because for the most part, I've seen them maybe once just be like, okay, I just want to explain why this is important. But they don't, I've never really seen them really be overbearing on it. They're kind of just like, I'm here to just make sure you guys understand exactly why this is here
yeah.
and why it's important.
I actually think that there's no difference between big resolutions and small ones. The small ones, every little word matters in any resolution, right? But those small ones, you can be very vague or ambiguous, and that requires a lot of discussion about meaning or explanation.
Or how
the
it could
big
be
ones
abused.
oftentimes are very specific, right? So, but yeah, no, I hear you. It's exciting. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Excellent,
I'm looking forward.
excellent.
I'm going to take some close-up pictures
maybe,
of you again
uh,
this year from the top of
Yes,
the
I
balcony.
know. I try not to do any shenanigans up there on the computer. Though last year I did take a look at the Formula One race, so and I did look at the Discord and saw some pictures of me up there. So I was like, okay, it's probably going to happen again this year.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Well, maybe we'll talk to you after we see how resolutions go and see how it went this year.
Yeah, I'd love to share my thoughts. So thank you guys.
All right, excellent. Thanks for popping on. All right, next up we have Worshipful Brother Max. I'm going to butcher it if I say it. Just go ahead and say your last name.
Skenendorf.
Who is the junior warden at Rhinelander Lodge and current Worshipful Master of Crandon Lodge. So thanks for stopping on, Max.
Pleasure to be here. That's the first time I've been introduced as Worshipful Brother, so thank you for that.
Ooh,
was
that
a
feels
treat.
different, don't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Well, you are. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's-
So I got a hard question for you while you're in the hot seat.
Sure.
What is your favorite lesson that you learned being a Freemason?
One of my favorites, a lot of younger guys aren't necessarily taught how to act around people in good society. And so when I got with my current lady, we're engaged, and
Congratulations.
I was told by a brother that you shouldn't call her your gal, you shouldn't call her your woman. You should always refer to as your lady, because it shows it's honor to her and it's honor to yourself. And so I would say that's my favorite lesson that I've learned and it builds off of just treating people better.
Treating people with respect and kindness. Yep. That's a huge one that I've always noticed in Masonry, that it's not always directly referenced, but it is a theme that's always like one of those hidden virtues where they're like, be kind, be generous, and be respectful. And it's a powerful tool in society. People like you more. You're able to be more successful because people want to hear what you have to say because you're nice. And I think that goes a long way for everything.
Yeah, and you feel good doing it.
What originally got you into Freemasonry?
So I did theater throughout high school, and I got into some productions while I was in college. And Master of the Rhinelander Lodge happened to be in that very same production with me. And in the casting room, the topic of Freemasonry got brought up, and some conspiracy theories were thrown around. And he looked and he said, well, you know what? I am a Freemason, and I'm the master of my lodge, and here's the truth of the matter. I ended up asking him more questions. He handed me this pamphlet that said, should I ask and have some information about Masonry? I got to reading it, and I said, you know what? Hell yeah, I want to be a Freemason.
there you go.
Yep. It's always interesting how different ways everyone kind of finds their way in. You're like, yeah, my theater director friend or production guy just happened to be there, and one thing leads to another, so it's always cool.
So, right time, right place.
Yep.
How long have you been a Mason now, Max?
4 years now.
4 years.
I'm in the same boat. We must have been joining around the same time, actually. What year was I made Mason? It would have been...
I don't remember what year you were. I was 2018 when I got raised, so you were either 19
I was 19. It was the year before COVID. Yep.
Yeah, I was 19 as well. I remember the glorious pre-COVID year.
Yep. The time before time stood still.
Before time.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Max, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and doing a quick hitter with us, and we'll have to get you on again sometime.
Thank you for having me.
We'll keep seeing you throughout the weekend. Have a good one.
All right, brother, try to get one fist length away from the mic. Introduce yourself, and what's your Masonic backstory?
My name is Andrew Beekner. I am currently junior warden at the Henry S. Baird Lodge number 174 in Sturgeon Bay.
Excellent. Welcome. Thanks
to
for
the
popping
pod.
on the podcast.
So what brought you to Freemasonry?
Well, as it turns out, an assistant high school football coach was a Mason, and after I graduated, he was wearing his Masonic coat on a surprisingly hot spring day. And I asked him if he was crazy, and he said, "No, I'm advertising." So I asked him for an application, and he said, "No, it's a petition," and that's where it started.
Awesome.
Right on.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So what's kept you in Freemasonry once you joined? Why are you sticking around?
I like being taught self-accountability. I like being around trustworthy people, and I feel as though when I go to bed at night, on some small level, I make the world a better place by leading by example.
Excellent. That's a solid answer.
You can never underestimate like the small good and how much of a big impact it can have too. Like it really is like, I mean, even when you're looking at the fire suppression tool program, you're like, yeah, this is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's expensive, but it's not outrageously expensive. But property and lives have already been saved with just a small gesture that can be put in the right place at the right time. And, you know, Masons have been doing that all over the place in various programs with the AEDs and all sorts of stuff. And, like, you know, it's our work and our participation that makes those things possible. And it's cool. I get the same thing where you're like, you know, it's nice to be a part of something that's for the good.
It is good. If only I can get my wife to join the Order of the Eastern Star.
All right. One more question for you before we get you out of the hot seat. How long have you been a Freemason?
I was raised February of 2015.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So like 9 years. That's a solid run. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on.
Yep.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, brother. It is time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. Your favorite
Just take a
location.
business card with you.
You can take a card
All
now.
right, we're not recording yet, but
Oh, yes, we are. Oh, yes, we are.
you're already recording. You unpaused it. Jeez, way to go.
So how did you? So you're going to sit here and not attend the meeting and just do
we're gonna be
podcast
in
all
the
day?
meeting. We're doing this before and during lunch and after. So we have to be in the meeting. We're both voting for our lodge.
So for our listeners, can you please quickly introduce yourself and your Masonic credentials?
Jonas Whitkey, West Dallas 291, just pluraled into James M. Hayes 331. I've been around for 4 months. I did Day of Light in February,
Okay.
and I'm doing everything I can to be as involved as I can. Lots of traveling, lots of memorization.
Yep. Yeah, you've been busy. I remember when you came and visited Lake, and I know that you guys were going all over the place, more or less, visiting lodges. I mean, what a great way to get into Masonry by immediately traveling.
You know, and for people who don't travel, I mean, I saw a couple brothers doing a lot of traveling, and I didn't really know why, and so let me check this thing out. And that is, I mean, that it's just where it's at. And some of you listening probably know, like, yeah, I know I should be traveling, but do it.
Yep.
Go do it.
It's hard because, you know, like, you already got your commitments to your lodge and stuff, but it's so rewarding when you're like, all right, it's just one extra meeting this week. I'm going to pop by this lodge and visit, you know, whatever it might be. Could be an event, could be just stated, and it's so fun to meet brethren from around the state, or even if you're going out of state, that's even cooler sometimes, seeing the difference in ritual and things like that. It's what makes us traveling men, and it's super rewarding, and you learn a lot too.
And I mean, you're always home. You know, you walk in the door and it's like immediately home.
Everybody's welcoming. You have instantly something in common with everybody there, so there's no lack of conversation. And yeah, it's especially nice to travel for degrees, because then to fill the sidelines for that candidate that's going through whichever one of the degree it is, and see the amount of support, and especially for them to see guys out traveling right away, I think that starts to instill the idea of traveling early on.
Yeah. Speaking of degrees, you know, I think one thing I've been really enjoying, I'm mentoring an EA, soon to be FC.
Oh, yeah.
And it might be surprising to hear that a brother 4 months old is mentoring, but I've really been putting in the work. You know, being able to take this young brother to an EA degree,
Yep.
Right.
you know, because they don't have very many opportunities a lot of the time. You know, okay, your EA is done. Talk to you in a few months. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't want that to happen, right? So, yeah, if you have an opportunity to take an EA or an FC to one of those respective degrees,
It's always nice to get them out traveling to see the degree they just went through, and, you know, be able to experience it from a sideliner, and then again instill that right away, and then that traveling's important, right? You know, so it's a good thing to do. We usually try to do that with our guys as well as we're taking them through if we can get them to a degree at another lodge, so it's always fun.
And mentoring I started mentoring very quickly after I became a Master Mason. It's one of the best ways to learn, too, is by teaching. And honestly, my little mentee babies, which I always call them, those are like my best guys. Like, there's something special about the mentor-mentee relationship where you're the guy who helps them introduce to people, get them comfortable in the craft, help them learn their posting. It's really a rewarding job, and it's super fun. And you'll find that once you're done doing the full mentorship with them, they're going to be like one of your right-hand men through your entire Masonic career because you were the guy who taught them. And it's like a really fun thing to have good mentors, and those relationships are awesome. I am always super protective of my former mentees around Lodge. I'll be like, I'm always looking out for my guys, so it's always fun.
Yeah, I find it so rewarding. Mm-hmm. And, just an interesting anecdote. I felt like it was going great. And spoiler, it was. But I was looking online at the Wisconsin Code and kind of looking through the different resources available to us. And lo and behold, there's a mentor's handbook.
Yep.
And I read through it. And it's a really good thing to read.
Yep.
Even if you feel very confident in your abilities and doing everything right, just go through some guidelines and remind yourself that you are. Or, learn a couple things like, that's kind of a nice idea. Maybe I'll try that too. So, because we're all about improvement.
Yep.
And education. And that's, there's a lot of good resources there. So try to take advantage of those whenever I can.
Yep. I mean, why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from a long lineage of brothers who've been doing just that? And every mentor is going to have their own style and their way of doing it. But it's nice to have those, like you were saying, the suggestions where you're like, actually, I like this. I think I could use this. Or some parts you're like, not really my style. But you can, no one's saying there's a right and wrong way to mentor. They're saying, here's some options and ideas. And then it's up to you as a mentor to learn your style and, learn to really build these relationships. And it's fun. It is a good improvement tool, too. It's really rewarding.
So, gentlemen, I think I'm going to get ready for this.
Yeah, I think it's about that time for us to kind of visit the bathroom and do all that stuff before we're stuck sitting in there for 3 hours. So thanks for popping on, Jonas. Appreciate it.
I may pop by again later if you'll have me. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just for anyone listening, they tempted me by waving a package of gummy bears. So I'm going to take this package here.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys. See you later, Jonas.
All right, we got another qualified brother coming on up. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name is Christopher Linkey, member of Waukesha Lodge 37 and member of the Education Committee.
Thank you for coming on down. So, I like to ask hard questions, and you're an esoteric guy, you're an education guy. Which symbol in Freemasonry resonates with you the most?
I would have to say the circumpunct, or the certain point within a circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's got so much meaning behind it.
Yep.
In terms of spirituality, in terms of conduct, and it's a sort of universal symbol that really captures everything of that degree.
It's like kind of subtle in the way that they kind of just drop it on you, and then you can find it like if you look at a lodge building, that's the altar in the center, that's a point within a circle, and if you have the Masons doing their lines up, there's the parallel line. So it's hidden everywhere. I mean, when you're holding up the compass, you're referencing a point, making a circle.
Yeah.
About circumscribing the passions, but I always like with that symbol the reference to John the Baptist and John the Evangelist, one being kind of a zealot, like a ascetic person, where you're like, this guy lives in the woods or in the desert and he wears pelts. And then you're like, on the opposite end, you have more of like I'd say like a educated, more of a knowledge. So it's like knowledge and wisdom sitting on two ends. And there's a lot of parallels you can do. And
well, it
in there.
Captures a lot of actually Greek philosophy, going back to Pythagoras and Aristotle with their lists of oppositional ideas.
Sure.
And what it becomes is this visual representation of the spectrum, which is our due bounds. Yep. And so, are you too lenient, or are you too strict? Are you too compassionate, or are you too ardent and set in your ways?
Yep.
And they became a way to capture for Masons really that spectrum of behavior that's so hard to capture from Pythagoras, Aristotle, and other Greeks.
Sure, and then it does it in a way that we like with symbolism, where they go, this is kind of hard to explain, but if you kind of unpack it in your mind, it gets closer to defining an experience or a type of person or an archetype for a man through symbol. And I think it's cool in the way that, like, it's one of the most important things when you're trying to be a good man. If you don't circumscribe your passions and stuff like that, it kind of doesn't allow you to do the other things that you need to do, because you'll be too either sporadic or too all over the place. You lack focus. That's why there's two borders. It says this is not, when you do the point with the circle without the borders, that can oftentimes represent infinity. It can be like, yep, infinite. They go, no, we're going to put two barriers and guardrails to say, let's keep the circle in a certain level. And you're like, yeah.
It's very much a reminder to the brothers that we are those guardrails for our fellow brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That we took an obligation to them before they ever came to the altar, so that at the end of the day, we can remind them of their error in the friendliest possible manner.
Yep.
And give them due and timely notice that they may ward off approaching danger.
Yep, before their point leaves the circle and goes into the line that we all agree we won't cross, whatever that might be. And I like that too, that they say it's a certain point within a circle, but it doesn't quite specify what the pure boundaries are. It's just like every Mason's obligation to create what an appropriate and healthy level is for things. Like when you're talking about temperance, a lot of the time you'd be like, okay, there's the absolute version. Like you'd be like, I am completely sober, I never drink, or stuff like that. And they go, for some, that is the appropriate point within the circle. Like for others, it's like, if it's not damaging your life, that's your point. And so for each individual, there's various needs. And it's up to the individual to recognize where they need to put those guardrails on based on their psychology. Maybe, it could be health issues. It could be, familial, like genetic issues where they're like, I just can't do these types of things. I have a tendency to overeat or whatever it might be.
Right.
And so it's up to the individual Mason to contemplate and recognize where they need to set those boundaries and then circumscribe themselves with their compasses or whatever.
And the other great point, and this is not, I can't take credit for it, it's actually Worshipful Brother Pat Choka's point. Those boundaries can shift and become smaller or larger depending on who you're around. What is due bounds in a hospitality suite might be different than what is due bounds in annual communication.
Yeah, what's due bounds? If you go to the hospitality party and you have some drinks, great. If you go to the funeral, hammered, not as cool.
Yeah,
so you got to know where your appropriate temperance needs to be applied and how to circumscribe it. Awesome. Cool.
All right.
Honestly, I don't have any more questions. I think that was a great thing to unpack for our listeners, and I really appreciate you coming by and doing a quick hitter. We'd love to have you on the podcast again to, I don't know, just nerd out about Mason stuff for a while.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for coming by, brother. All right, we have another brother coming and join us. Can you please introduce yourself for our listeners? Masonic credentials.
And my what?
Masonic credentials. What lodge are you from and such?
Okay, my name's Kurt Sorensen. I am a senior warden at Milton 161.
Sure. So, easy question. What got you into Freemasonry and what keeps you here?
I found the history of it all fascinating, and that's what got me to come into it. But it's probably the camaraderie and the relationships you have with the brothers at the lodge that keeps me there.
I think that's like a very common answer, and I think it's because reading books and studying is fun. But you could do that by yourself. You cannot create camaraderie and brotherhood by yourself. So you find that a lot of people will come in seeking knowledge, and they'll continue to do that, but they stay because they're like, it's awesome. You're like, I can hang out with brothers, I can do all this good stuff. So it's a unique thing, and I think we should be really proud of that too.
I would agree with you, and I really enjoyed your show, and the one thing that got me to listen to it in the first place, Pat Chalka, and I'm in a book club with him, and we were talking about the charges.
Yep.
And he goes, you got to listen to these guys' show because they have a really good one on the charges, and he was quite correct. It was excellent.
It's fun because you don't even have to do that much research. If you get two brothers and go, let's just start talking about this thing, you'll start to just unpack it in real time, where you're like, maybe it's this, but actually, I think it interprets as this, and you start to, like, just through fellowship, like, get deeper meaning from some of our symbols and all that good stuff. Matt's back.
Sorry I'm late. Real quick, so I can let my wife know. What do you want to drink from the deli?
A Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola?
Yep. But awesome. I told you to only steal you for a minute or two, and I'll stay true to that. But I appreciate you coming on down and jumping on the quick cast. And
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
I think you'll have fun listening to this episode because we're on interview 8, so we're just rapid fire brothers.
Excellent.
Sorry I missed it.
Thank you very much. Love
Yep.
So,
Cheers. Thank you, brother.
take care.
Good voice.
Yeah, you do. Try to get like one fist length from the microphone. No, not that way. For our listeners, please introduce yourself and your lodge and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm in Shawano Lodge 170, past master twice. Everybody calls me Jimbo because I'm a shrine clown named Jimbo. I joined the fraternity in '84. I was very lucky because Shawano Lodge was quite active at the time.
Sure.
And very encouraging as you progressed through the line. And once after you became a master, then they would... you picking that up?
Yeah, it'll be all right. Part of the game.
There's really good editing software that'll take it out.
Okay. I became a member of the Scottish Rite, and then eventually I joined the Shrine.
Sure.
So what really is interesting is if you do join the fraternity, you have no anticipation of what can happen.
You can do all sorts
you really
of weird
don't
stuff.
know what's available for you out there. I was very fortunate because there was a lot of people around me that were very active in the fraternity. So because I joined when I did, I eventually became a shrine clown, and I've been a shrine clown for 27 years. But in contrast with that, I also, in 2000, went to a shrine hospital and discovered that the fact that I own a contract sewing business became a big asset to the hospitals, both Minneapolis and Chicago. So it opened up a whole other door of altruism for me. And I use that term now because I want the kids to go look that word up. So I still work for both Shrine hospitals.
Okay.
And what I do is I maintain their rehab facilities as far as I can with, recovering things. I've redid the hospital cafeteria in Chicago, and did a lot of the upholstery needs that were in peripheral parts of the hospital for many years, still do. In fact, I'll be going back down there in a couple of weeks. I also take care of their clinic, which gets beat up pretty bad because of wheelchairs.
I believe it.
So, and then through a fluke, a potentate's sister donated a sewing machine to an organization down in Stevens Point, and I found out that we, as a state in Wisconsin, we're partnered with Nicaragua. When she donated the sewing machine, they ran an article about it in the Mountain Morris paper. The Mountain Morris paper came out, and one of the Shriners lived there, and he brought that to me in Green Bay. I called the Wisconsin-Nicaragua project, and for the past 10 years, I've been fixing sewing machines that go over to Nicaragua. And I've been there twice, but now we can't go there anymore because he likes Putin.
Oh, no.
So we're not on his favorite list. But because I joined the fraternity, I've had all these other opportunities. All right.
It's interesting how you can just find yourself suddenly having, like, I bet you right when you started, you never expected to be where you are now doing what you're doing now, and Masonry can just do that to you.
Never would have had, but you have to look at the peripheral friendships that you acquire. I'm just amazed at the things that other Masons have done with several Masons in our lodge. They're vets, and one of them was really struggling after he came back and wasn't finding a good job, and another brother said, you're a big guy, why don't you just go into the iron workers, I'll back you.
Yeah.
So he's been in there 2 years, and he's going on 3 years, and I guess the way the union works, after so many thousand hours you work, you're in for life,
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
So it was a really cool step, I've gotten some guys I had got some police officers and correctional officers in the clown unit. You wouldn't believe it is possible, but these guys, when we're at the circus, they say, we know a lot of these people, but they don't know who we are. This is really cool,
Right.
Yeah, I'm Bonzo right now. They'll never know.
and the fact that you can wear the symbol and be recognized in many cases is very, very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I see you're a Shriner." And I was one of your kids, and it's a blessing that they do that. I just love to hear that. And I was active with the Job's Daughters for quite a while. They're not as big as they used to be where we are, but it's a life-changing experience all the way around. And The only thing is you have to remember that if you become a Mason, you wear that symbol and you represent it, so you have to be careful of what you do.
Yep, you got to take that. I mean, when you take the obligation, you're taking on a responsibility, and you have to try to live up to that responsibility. And I think more Masons would benefit from remembering that. I mean, that's the reason we wear the ring, so that when you're starting to feel yourself maybe doing something that would be not Masonic, you can see the ring and go, you know what, I don't do that because I'm a Mason. And
I was actually at a trade show many years ago, and I was looking for work. I own my own company, and I went. It's called a SHOT Show, Sporting Hunting Outdoor Trade Show. And I pushed a business card across to a company, and 3 months later they called me, and I went out to Utah, and I did business. I'm still doing business with them. But after a while, the original owner got old, and he wanted to sell the business, so he did. He had me fly out to meet the new owner, and the old owner and I went out to dinner, and I said, I'm really curious why you had me working for you, because you're all Mormon, and I'm not a Mormon. So how does that happen? He said, you're a Mason. I said, how do you know that? He said, when you pushed your business card to me, I saw your ring. I said, so what's the significance? He said, Joseph Smith was a Mason. I didn't know that.
they have a complicated relationship with Masonry.
there's a very complicated history there.
Yeah, there's like, he was a Mason, but then there was also like there's, it's hot and cold with them on that, depending on who you talk to, but yep.
For some odd reason, in Utah, they respect that, though.
Yep.
Right on.
But they have in Salt Lake City, they got a big lodge, so.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a significant difference in my lifetime. I try to encourage everybody that comes in to do what they can.
Yep.
To learn about the fraternity and go through it, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
I mean, I'm a younger Mason, but it's special. You can tell very quickly that it's something special, and I think, we're all happy to be here at Annual Communication, because what's better than all this brother time? There's brothers everywhere, and it's a very cool thing. But for the sake of time, I know the Grand Master wants us in there in about 6 minutes. Jimbo, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Appreciate it, Jimbo.
Make sure you take a business card. You can listen to this episode. It'll be out next Thursday. And thank you for coming by.
Something I wanted to do.
All right, awesome. All right, Andrew. Well, that's a wrap on day one of Annual Communication here in Wisconsin. It was a really good day.
What a hoot. What an absolute hoot. I mean, productive day at Annual. Like
lots of good discussion about the resolutions.
Yep, the resolutions
lots of
were
work
good.
done.
Yep, and a lot of great interviews. I mean, I've met so many cool people here just in one day. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time. I think we'll leave it at that, since you probably just heard a bunch of different people talking. And we'll pick this up again tomorrow with hopefully some more interviews with some more great people.
Awesome. Till next time, guys.
All right, have a good one.